we can't always control outcomes. What we can control is how we act in the face of them. This thing called dignity, which is scarce, is how a man ought to face adversity. Dignity is acting a certain way based on your virtues, based on virtue, regardless of the circumstance. It's a way of acting that isn't dependent on circumstance. So you act like this when you're extremely lucky. You act like this when you're extremely unfortunate. How to deal with your problems like a Stoic, and the best example I've seen of this is Norm Macdonald. We'll get into Norm in a bit, but first of all, you deal with your problems like a Stoic with something called dignity. Dignity used to be widespread. You would act in a certain way. In fact, in Roman times, it was everything. That's how they judged virtue. Virtue was a reward unto itself. It was its own reward. Today, we're all about outcomes. We're all about how we look, how we're perceived, how people think we're doing, and so forth. But there was a time when heroes were judged on their actions, not their results. When virtue was its own reward, i.e., being virtuous and living a virtuous life was the reward, not necessarily the outcomes that it would produce. So in life, we have catastrophes, we have horrible things that'll happen to us, we have luck, we have randomness. We can't always control outcomes. What we can control is how we act in the face of them. And this thing called dignity, which is scarce these days at least, is how a man ought to face adversity, struggle, catastrophe, and going through absolute hell. So dignity is acting a certain way based on your virtues, based on virtue, regardless of the circumstance. It's a way of acting that isn't dependent on circumstance. So you act like this when you're extremely lucky. You act like this when you're extremely unfortunate. And one of the best examples of this I have seen is Norm Macdonald. So Norm Macdonald is one of my favorite comedians. The guy's hilarious. He supposedly, it seems like he had cancer for 8 years. And this is a Stoic way of dealing with things because if you are stricken with cancer, if you have cancer, if you are dying, he didn't tell anyone. I don't think he told anyone. His reasoning must have been because he didn't want to look like a victim, and he's a comedian and he just wants to make people laugh. But if you look at how typical people, and I myself do this, so I have to work on this as well, especially with stress and fear and worry, we can voice these things and we can try to give people at least an inkling that things are not going right by how we speak and how we act, and what we're looking for is a little bit of pity. We have self-pity because life has thrown us these unlucky events, and we see pity as an excuse to act in a pitiful manner, act in a weak manner. So if you want to deal with your issues like a Stoic, you deal with your problems like dignity. That doesn't mean you are devoid of emotion. So they've done this, I think, multiple times, but say you have a brain tumor, and so this guy had a brain tumor and they cut out too much of his brain. That removed the emotional aspect of his psyche or whatever. So he had no emotions. What happened was, well, what most people think would happen is that he would have clarity as to what he would do. Emotion would be removed from the situation, so he would objectively see how to act and what to do in any given circumstance. That's not what happened. What actually happened was he couldn't act at all. He couldn't make decisions. And what you see is that we're emotional beings. We need emotion. We need urgency, fear, desire, love. We need these emotions to make great decisions. What we can't do is allow these emotions to prevent us from making great decisions. So there's a duality here, a dichotomy. We need emotions. We just can't be pushed around by them, and we can't be victimized by them. So when we're making decisions, use your emotion to make the right decision. You don't live emotionlessly. That's impossible. You can't live without emotion, whether you understand it, see it, or don't. You probably don't see it, but emotions are swaying your decisions. What you don't do is wear those emotions outwardly. And this goes against everything that is being pushed by society today, that you wear your emotions on your sleeve, that you talk about your problems, that the victim Olympics, the greatest victim is the biggest hero. That's not a good way of living. And if you want to live well, you have to buck the trends of society, because society is heading into shithole. You act with dignity while having the emotions. So life can be going horrible. You could be stricken with cancer, but you act with dignity outwardly. In Man's Search for Meaning, you were in a concentration camp. It is hell. It is the definition of hell. But you try to find meaning within this suffering. And as soon as you put yourself in the position of being a victim in a situation like a concentration camp, we're talking extreme hell. Not let alone if you lose your job, if your old lady leaves you, if she cheats on you with the ski instructor, or your husband cheats on you with the aspiring model, or whatever. I'm taking these examples from Fooled by Randomness. Much of this podcast is shaped by Fooled by Randomness by Nassim Taleb. Regardless of what goes on around you, you act with dignity. There's another story in Seneca's epistles of, the name escapes me, but they go into a village and everything is destroyed. This man has lost, while they're away fighting a war, I think, another kingdom, an army comes in, kills everyone, kills everything. This man's lost his house, his family, everything. And they ask him, what have you lost? And he says, I have everything with me that I need to be happy. And that is an extreme stoicism, where you can't control the circumstance. You can't control what happens to you. There is a lot of randomness in this world, but you can control how you act in relation to what is happening to you. Now, I probably will never get to the point where everything could be taken from me and I will say, I have everything I need to be happy. Although anyone can get there, so in theory I could get there. But what I can do is work on acting with dignity. When things are great, I'm not arrogant. I'm not taking my luck for granted. I'm not placing more importance on my work and how intelligent I am. I am ascribing some of my success to luck, which should keep you humble, which should make you want to hedge against the downside of luck. When things are going bad, I can find how I can control my turning of the corner. I can control the work I do, the output, the clarity of my thinking. And most importantly, I can control how I act with dignity. Dignity. Men cannot act without dignity. All these people trying to be the victim. All these people trying to say, poor me, trying to looking on Instagram, oh, I wish I was this, I wish I was that. You're not hurting anyone but yourself. You're making it so that you cannot rise above your circumstances. And you're making it so that you will fall into this deep, dark hole of victimhood. And one of the ways to get out of this hole is to simply act as you ought to act, with virtue leading the way, whether things are good, whether things are bad. And understanding sometimes you just can't control the outcomes. So you do all you can in your power to create great outcomes, to survive the horrible things. And throughout those circumstances, you act in a way that is befitting of a stoic, befitting of a man, a Christian, a Buddhist, whatever you are, a Muslim. You act with honor. You act with grace under pressure. And one of the best examples I've seen of that is Norm Macdonald. He's a comedian, very intelligent guy. And you have a lot of people that are spouting Stoicism, but I don't think they would act in that manner if they were actually faced with that scenario of having cancer for 8 years or 10 years or whatever it was, not telling a soul, bearing that burden, and making people laugh the entire time without ever breaking. That's Stoicism. That's acting with dignity. So we're all going through shit. I'm not trying to belittle the shit you're going through. But you are far better off in life if you act with dignity in all circumstances, whether good or bad. If you like this video, if you like the podcast, please give it a thumbs up, give it a share. Talk to you soon.